So I was trying to think about what to make this video topic on, and I came to the idea of depth and how many people seem to live pretty shallow personas, existences, at least at face value. And one thing I think that most people, especially young people, lack nowadays is, yes, awareness, obviously, but the other thing is kind of an interest to tap into the more deep level of the mind. And I think there's a lot of benefits there to diving into psychology, into philosophy, not just from a mental perspective, but also from a social perspective. Many people get caught up in the day-to-day kind of life patterns of society that involve repetition, high order, and kind of performance, but they don't really take time to strip away those layers, especially for themselves, their personalities, and understand what their motivations are intrinsically for behaving a certain way, operating on a certain frequency, and just existing in some pseudo version of themselves. So there's two things that I think people can benefit from, and one is the philosophy of their own person, their own being. What do they believe? What do they really feel about life? What do they really think about themselves? You know? How can they exist in this chaos as an individual and still retain that sense of themselves amongst all the trauma, stress, hardship, obstacles, etc.? And the other thing is, how can you navigate the feelings, emotions, wills, desires of others? So that's where psychology comes into play. And yes, it's about understanding your own mind, but I'd say a lot of it's about really trying to understand the minds of others. And so these two things, these elements, I think are very superficial in today's society, especially in Western culture that prioritizes shallow social media relations, high velocity dopamine reception, and overall just very mundane connections, forming relationships that are very fleeting and not very reliable, I should say. So in order to kind of deepen or make more profound your experience, I think it takes a lot of mental work. So obviously it does require thinking, and if you aren't somebody that enjoys thinking, it could be quite difficult to kind of peel back these layers. But thinking obviously comes first, or feeling might come first. So one of those two has to happen in order to be able to start exploring. And from that point, you have to decide what your own motivations are to continue, because you're going to run into certain roadblocks, such as conflict or clash between your own values and those of the world, or even within yourself, as I've alluded to in previous videos, the origins of conflict. But past that point, if you can move past conflict, past strife, and look deeper, then you'll start to find more inspirations, not just for life, but for kind of pursuits for happiness, you know? So not just the desire to keep continuing, but the desire to actually thrive. And I think many people haven't discovered those for themselves, either because of harbored guilt, resentment, trauma that they haven't been able to let go of or overcome. And so they've been stuck at this kind of very low level of life that has really held them back from tapping into who they can really become. So yeah, I think those are the two things, you know. It's obviously not everybody's going to dive to the deepest depths, you know, the darkest places, because not everybody has the desire to do that, nor necessarily the capacity. Some people's minds just, you know, can't quite maintain that level of thought. But for those of you that can, I implore you really to just give it a shot, to begin to challenge yourself, not just on that intellectual level, but on an existential level. You know, begin to question, begin to inquire, begin to search, because having those questions in your mind will lead to answers. And answers ultimately do lead to more questions, but they also lead to fulfillment and satisfaction. And I think at the end of the day, that's all we're really searching for, is to feel that sense of contentment. So that's all I got for today. Hope you enjoyed, and if you're celebrating Labor Day tomorrow, hope you have a great day off, and talk soon. So, peace.